la economía, ¿cierto?, no es solamente la extracción. La economía puede proveer de cosas, tiene que proveer de calidad de vida, tiene que proveer de cosas positivas para todos, no tiene que ser solamente para un grupo y otros que se sacrifiquen. Y una persona que ha venido haciendo un trabajo increíble en ese sentido ha sido Rashid Sumaila, que es un gran amigo, además, con el cual nos encontramos en montones de lugares del planeta. Tengo el placer de presentarlo. La última vez nos vimos ahora hace poco en el sur de Chile, estuvimos los dos presentando, hace unas semanas atrás. Él es un profesor de la Universidad de British Columbia. Él viene de África, de Ghana, y trae la experiencia también viva del continente africano del sur, que llamamos muchas veces, que es del cual somos, la mayor parte de los que están aquí, somos parte. Y por lo tanto hace mucho más valioso el conocimiento, no solamente académico que él tiene, pero el conocimiento de la experiencia de vivir y de haber sido también parte de esas mismas comunidades de las cuales hablamos hoy día. Se ha enfocado en la bioeconomía, ¿cierto? Y en la evaluación, en el análisis de la valoración de los ecosistemas desde la perspectiva, ¿cierto?, de la macroeconomía, pero también particularmente de las pesquerías. Para terminar, les voy a contar algo de Rashid. Hace poco, cuando me preguntaban cuáles eran los temas más importantes que teníamos que definir en el planeta para salvar el océano, uno de ellos es el tema de los subsidios pesqueros. Estamos subsidiando, países ricos están subsidiando la destrucción de todos los stocks pesqueros en el planeta. Les voy a decir que esa persona que les va a hablar ahora y que está sentado ahí con un perfil bajísimo, casi no tiene ego, diría yo, se operó del ego, como decimos, él, gracias a sus informes, sus reportes y sus papers, él y algunos otros compañeros, principalmente él, fue quien nos guió para poder llegar a un acuerdo que es histórico hace un par de meses atrás en la OMC, la Organización Mundial de Comercio, para eliminar los subsidios que están destruyendo el océano. Por lo tanto, yo quiero que le den un aplauso gigantesco y que sepan que gracias a él están ocurriendo esas cosas. Rashid, el lugar es tuyo.
Sí, es tan importante la presentación de Rashid que yo les sugiero, les recomiendo que se pongan diadema para poder entenderla bien los que no hablen inglés. Vale la pena, Rashid.
Oh, my God.
Sí.
Yeah. All right. So, you see this thing here? I didn't remove it. I want to say thanks to the translators. They are very powerful. They are very powerful. So sometimes I forget the speaker and I hear their voices say, how can they be so knowledgeable? They're giving all these talks, right? So thank you for that. And thanks to the group here for inviting me. Max, you always introduce me and I kind of, oh my God. So thank you so much for the passion and everything. There's so many people to thank, but I'm here to give you summarize some of our work on subsidies. And I've been listening. This has been a really amazing meeting. Like Max, you said, top talks, and you see people passionate. This is not just about the fish we eat, it's bigger than us. And everything I heard here is just wonderful. And in shaping this talk, I tried to touch on the elements that I had. So it's going to be subsidies. Subsidies will be at the center, but I'm going to link up to many things. So let's get going. So I start to motivate you by telling you what you know already. Isn't that funny? So I have a few slides that I just throw out something. You all know that the ocean is 70% of the Earth's surface. So I tell my students, if you were scoring 30%, you will never be in this class. The same thing with the people in this room. If you mess up 70% of what is important to you, then you are in trouble, right? So we cannot mess up the ocean. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity to mess up the ocean, right? And at the same time, that the ocean is large doesn't mean that we cannot take care of it. And that's what I see from all of you here. It's almost magical, actually. So the next point, that too, I believe you know, the oxygen. I heard you talk about that. This simple fact made me to do a talk, and the title is "The Ocean is Our Lives." Because think about it. Half of the ocean, oxygen on Earth is from the ocean, from life in the ocean. So without that, there will be only half oxygen for all of us, which means we have half a life. Ask yourself, what is half a life? It's no life, right? So the ocean is our life, just on oxygen. So this is serious stuff, you know. Next one, is it this way? I see people pointing here. Actually 95% of the ocean is home to 95% of life on Earth. You know, 95%. Because we are on Earth, we think everything happens on land. No. If you just go a little bit, you only see a few birds flying, but in the ocean you go as deep as possible and you still see amazing animals, right? So the ocean is actually the place where life is. Next one. I hope I get this moving. We're on the Pacific Ocean. So I thought I should put this there for you. The Pacific Ocean is over 5 times wider than the moon. I haven't been to the moon. Maybe I'll go one day. But the moon is wide. And the Pacific Ocean, which is the largest water body you will find on Earth, is actually 5 times the width of the. So this is serious stuff. It's where everything happens, you know. Now, what else do I have to say about how important the ocean is? Most of us relate to the ocean because we like to eat fish. Fish is helpful. It has macronutrients. You go to parts of the world in Southeast Asia, in West Africa, parts of Latin America, fish may be the only animal protein people have in their diet. So this is important also, right? And if you are from the rich part of the world, I say fish. Fish is food for the rich and the poor. If you are really rich, you are in New York or you are in Mexico City or Vancouver, you have a good day, you go to a restaurant, one of the things you order is fish. So it's good for poor people and good for rich people. And we take, statistics for you, we take about 100 million tons of fish out of the ocean each year, legally and or illegally. 100 million, that's one rough estimate. Now, that's a lot of biomass. Have you thought about this? If you convert this to the weight of cows, mature cows, you know, you think the little fish, anchovies, in Peru, they take millions of them. If you just turn them into mature cows in weight, we are taking at least 100 million mature cows out of the ocean each year. That's a lot of food. It's a lot of economics, about $500 billion being pumped in. But it's also something you have to think about the ecosystem, the animals in there. What does this mean? Even the ocean, as mighty as it is, what system can sustain 100 million tons of biomass being taken out of it? And the things we used to take, the bottom trawlers, we've talked about it. All of those things are something we need to think about. So this is a great point to make. And that's, I think, my it's not my really last slide. It's the last slide of those key facts I just threw us. Now, this is my favorite model of our relationship with the ocean and with nature as a whole. If you think about it, if you boil down our relationship with nature, the ocean in this case, we do two things, people. When we go to the ocean, we take the things we need, the things we want, the things we desire, the goods and services, we take them out of nature, bring it into our economy, do what we do with it in our social system, cultural system. At the end of the day, you know what we produce? Waste. And where do the waste go? Waste go to the ocean, to nature. From the ocean, from nature, good things come. To nature, to the ocean, bad things go. And to me, that is the essence of all we do, whether it's the science, whether it's the activism we've seen here, whether it's the funding. Everything we do is to try to ensure that we don't overtake and we don't overpollute, because if we do, we destroy this amazing system that nature has given us. You get it? So we are all in here. That's why I call myself an interdisciplinary ocean and fisheries economist, because no single discipline can do this. No single person can do this. We all have to be on deck. So it is about science, it's about data, it's about collaboration, about partnership, co-creation, inclusiveness, diversity. What is it? Is it AUKUS? You guys just blew many people blew me away, but you guys were just amazing, right? That is about diversity, right? If you just have a bunch of guys, we will talk about something else. So yeah, so you get good stuff coming to the table, right? This is beautiful. Actually, there's a feature article in the Global Mail, Canada's main newspaper, which appeared a few weeks ago. It's called Girls Who Fish. Just Google this. It's an amazing thing. And they went around the world. They didn't find you guys. I wish you were in. But I'll tell the journalists actually about your group. And girls who fish, and they fish. They know we need the fish to feed our families, but they also know that we have to take care of the fish, the environment, not just grab them and run off and put the money in a bank somewhere. So this is my favorite model. Now, how are we doing? Actually, we are overtaking. We are overpolluting. The evidence is everywhere. I could talk on this slide forever. You have climate change, you have overfishing, marine debris, plastic all over in the ocean, oil spills, you know. I read somewhere that the oil spills happening in West Africa, there's more than one of what happened in the Gulf of Mexico each year. Nobody talks about it, right? Because it's the US, the whole world, the media is there. So there's a lot going on. We are not doing well, and I think everybody in this room knows this. That's what motivates us. So we got to do better, all right? And when we here, Sylvia L. was mentioned, she cares about the nature, she cares about the environment, but she also cares about people. And I think who said it, Max? Somebody said that. We are looking for this balance. We want people to have decent living, but we don't want this to be at the cost of destroying nature, because that will not help us at the end of the day. So here, that's it. More and more we are taking fish from depleted systems, polluted systems, right? Overfish systems, that's that, from FAO and our group. And in here, the consequences of that is on people, actually. The guy is saying, is that all the shrimp I get? I was in Malaysia in June or July or something. I was there, we went to the coast, and the fishermen are sitting there, they go a whole day, they can't get anything. I went to the fish market, and this lady was sitting down. The fish was so pathetic. I couldn't even take a photo of the fish on the table. It was so miserable, right? So this is about people, actually. And the lady there, that's what we're seeing more and more, environmental refugees, right? So this is, when you see a city, Pakistan, a third of it was underwater, right? Nigeria, 600 million homes gone just last week. Talk about Florida, right? So we love nature because nature is us. Nature serves us. And if we mess up nature, we're messing ourselves up. So forced migration, right? And I tell them, where was I in Europe? I say, look, we people, when you are in a place and life is too difficult, what do? You move. Fish, even fish does that. When the water temperature is high, they move towards the poles, right? Why should people sit down? So if you don't want forced migration, I was in Europe, right? West Africans get on boats trying to get to Europe. Half of them sink and die. Our hearts dies with them. Partly, they come to Europe and all the problems. Hey, so we all have to fix this world. We have to make it livable everywhere for everybody, and then we will be in good place, all right? Yeah, so that's, thank you. Yeah, and I'm optimistic. That's one thing. This morning I was up at 5 on a panel. They asked me whether I'm optimistic, and it came up again. I think at some point, the world's population, enough of the world population, will realize this and work towards that. And then we will start being on a path to better life for people and for nature. Sorry. So having said all this, let's see, where am I? So we get down to how to manage our ocean, which is again the topic here. There are many things you can do, and I've heard people mention you need good management within countries. You need good management across countries because fish don't respect borders. If you are halibut, US and Canada share them. Cod, Russia and Norway. In Africa, Namibia, South Africa, and Angola, they share the Hague. So there is cross-border collaboration. That is a must. And illegal fishing, there's no time. Each of these is a number of talks, as you can imagine, and there are papers backing this. We have to make illegal fishing unprofitable. They fish illegally because it pays them. Make it unprofitable. Change the incentive. Buy insurance. We talk a lot about creating MPAs. For an economist, that is like buying insurance. You don't fish everywhere because you can mess up. And then where do you go? So put part of your portfolio, your ocean portfolio, away so that it will be there to protect you. That is why you don't put all your retirement money in Elon Musk, his Tesla share, because you know, right? Tomorrow may be different. So you spread it. That's part of the reason. For insurance alone, we need to protect a large chunk of our ocean, up to half actually, some say, to really get the protection you need. And then the last one is our subsidies, which is where I go now. Now, when I look at our policies, what has been bothering me, and the subsidies is one case, where it seems we put policies together that tend to reinforce negative feedback from people to nature and nature to people, which is not what policies are supposed to do. They are supposed to do the opposite. We create policies, we spend our public money to help ensure that there is a positive feedback from people and nature. And subsidies is a really good example of this negative feedback. And you can see many of them already, and I'll just focus on that. So, and what do I mean by that? If you give the big industrial boats public funds, they go around, they catch the fish, they deplete, they go to the next. One paper calls this the roving bandit, right? The roving bandit is the title of a paper, a fisheries paper. I'm not a co-author, but a beautiful title. So when you do that, you leave the coastal people with nothing, and they cannot run all over the world. So they are stuck there, and they're trying to hang on the last fish for their livelihood, right? Many of you know this. So that is the kind of thing that this kind of policy really bad for everything. We should stop it. People say, why do we do this? That's another topic, you know, pressure groups, lobbies, and politics. So subsidies became a big issue when the world gave the WTO the mandate in 2001 to actually try to discipline, because people understand this is not a good thing to do. And after 20 years, like Mark said, this year we got an agreement on the table, which is great to see, right? Just the fact that 164 countries can sign on to one document, for me, that's already an achievement, because I'm at the point I thought we couldn't even agree on anything. Where was I in the US? I was in New York not long ago. I said, you know, the beautiful America cannot even agree whether January 6th is a picnic or not. Can you imagine? Up to today, right? And they agreed on, that's beautiful, right? But now we are really assessing to see what does it mean for the fish. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And there are a number of researchers looking at this, including our group. So we started developing databases and analysis to support global policy. And this has been going on for 20 years, just like it's crazy how the years have gone by. At one point, me and my group, we actually wrote to every fisheries minister in the world. We make an estimate, we send it to you and say, check it out, this is our estimate. If you have better data, send it to us. Otherwise, I'm going public with this, right? And actually, we got some good reactions. That's how we played it. India, they made us to send one of our students to India for 2 weeks in their office to check through. The UK really sent us data. So a lot went into this effort, because it's almost like detective work, isn't it? So they don't tell you I'm giving this to the country. So this some 2 slides just to summarize what we find. we classify subsidies into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Subsidies are not all bad. There are subsidies, public spending. That's why we have public spending to help society achieve certain goals. So then we call that good subsidies. But if you give money, public funds, to overfish, that is a bad subsidy. So that's our classification. And here you have the top and the bottom. Most of the subsidies are bad subsidies or harmful subsidies, overcapacity. People call them all sorts of names. It just means that they encourage overfishing outside of a marketplace. So 22 billion of the 35 billion we estimate are bad subsidies. So I do this, you see two pictures. One is developing countries. The other one is high development index countries, and low. And I did it because a country like China is classified as developing country. But actually, when it comes to fisheries, how could you do that? But I cannot change the definition of the UN. So what we do, we use the HDI. Then China jumps to the top. And that is what changes that map, seriously. China, I think Russia, and a few more. So that's the purpose. But most of the subsidies are not good subsidies. Now, second slide. I love this one a lot, led by my PhD student, Anna Schobauer. What we did here to take every country's estimate and say how much goes to small scale versus how much goes to large scale. And how did I get the motivation to do this? I gave a talk on subsidies at the UK, at British Parliament. This was G20 meeting. The then Speaker of the House of Assembly of Indonesia was in the room. He took me to task. For about 5 minutes, we're doing back and forth. He says, hey, we will continue to give subsidies. I said, why will you do that, sir? So we want to help our small-scale fishers, our poor, vulnerable people. Then I didn't have data, even though I knew from what I've seen that the money doesn't go to the small guys, right? So that led to this work, and this is what we saw. I mean, this blew my mind. About 20% or less of the total global subsidies goes to small-scale fishers. The rest goes to the big guy. Think of fuel subsidy, right? It is according to your consumption of fuel. So that automatically goes to large industrial scale. If you are doing this with your hook and line, you don't get anything, right? So this is serious stuff. So in addition to depleting the ocean, we are also advantaging big boat owners versus small community owners. And this allowed me to, I feel like it's not going to work well. So that is the data for you, the total, and the small scale, large scale. Now I'm going into a few slides to see how this money is actually messing up things seriously on the ocean. So here, this is overfishing, a beautiful picture of overfishing. We're taking too many fish, we're truncating the food web, and we are messing up the habitat with bottom trawling and so on. All these three are overfishing. And subsidies is part of this, right? If you take out subsidies, a lot of this will not happen. So subsidies, overfishing, and climate change. What that means is that we are taking out too many animals out of the ocean, the big ones, the ones that sequester carbon that came up. And so you are also, from the fishery, you are increasing climate change. You are fishing too much and pumping too much. So that's one slide for you on that. Then this I took from a paper, I'm not a co-author, and they identified about 8 ways by which animals in the ocean actually help us sequester carbon. This is very important service, right? So for the high seas, me and my colleague Alex Rogers and 2 of our lab members, we look at the high seas. How much is the value of the fish we catch from the high seas sell? How much do we get? Versus how much does the carbon, the fish there, sequester for us? And we found 1 to 10 value. The carbon value is 10 times the fish value. So this is what we call broad economics, interdisciplinary economics, because if you narrow yourself to what is sold in the market, you miss out a lot of the big picture. And you don't want to do that if you are doing proper economics, actually. Yeah. So, climate change, subsidies, climate change, and plastic pollution. And I needed to bring plastic pollution because it's huge, it's causing a lot of damage. And where does all that come from? It's through the oil and gas system, right? Some of the byproducts they turn into plastic. That's why it's cheap and so on. And OECD estimates that. Now, you think that fisheries is chicken change. OECD estimates that each year our governments give $5.4 trillion of subsidies to the oil and gas sector. Think of the craziest thing to do. Actually, if you are doing good economics, you have to tax them. You don't give them free money. Because of all the negative externalities, you tax them. So they don't do much of it. But we're giving subsidies so they pump out more oil. That leads to more plastic in the economy and in the environment. So that's another connection for you. And actually, the picture I showed you, 20% to 80%, it leads to a number of things. One of them, it disadvantages the small scale, obviously. It disadvantages developing country fishers. In one estimate, a fisher in the rich developed world, if he or she gets $7, no, let me turn it the other way. If a developing country fisher gets $1, the developed country one gets $7. So that's the ratio, right? Think about really aggravating inequality in the world. How about men and women? And this is something that touches me a lot, being a West African, Nigeria, Ghana, and African in general, knowing how disadvantaged our ladies, our girls, our women are disadvantaged versus the boys. This is something that really touches me. And when you look at the data, as we do, most women who fish don't fish with the big industrial boats. They're small-scale fishers, community fishers. You go to northern Canada, we have indigenous women who are really feeding their family, working and fishing and getting. And the money goes to the large scale, which means that women are disadvantaged, making the situation worse. I read a report where they look at legal equality in the world. They look at all countries, and they could only see men and women treated equally by the law in only 6 countries in the world. Only 6, right? This is the law. We're not talking about culture, religion, all the other things, right? So I don't want my penny to go and aggravate that disparity. How about the youth? The youth don't jump onto big boats. They have to start small. They are disadvantaged. And this is a joke I'm putting here. But when I look at the subsidies, I was wondering, I whispered to the fish, okay? So you have seen a fish whisperer now. In the night, I'm sleeping and talking to fish. So I'll tell you what fish told me about subsidies. What will the fish say, right? I think this is what the fish will say. Number one, we don't have power to stop you from eating us. If we could, we will say, don't eat us. So that's the first thing the fish will say. Yes, yeah. And then the second thing they will say is, okay, given that we have no power to stop you, how dumb can you be subsidizing overfishing, taking the fish out of your population, the future generation, and so on, your children, and how could you do that? And they will end up by saying, you guys have bigger brains than us, obviously, but we don't know what you're using your big brains for. I mean, how can you waste your money this way? So that's my whisper from fish for you, right? It's just, I think about this so much, so many times, and it's great. Now, linking to the big topic of this meeting is protection, marine protection. And subsidies actually play a big role here. When we did this report for the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, and we got the paper published in Nature Communication, what we saw is that we could only trace $13 billion that goes into marine protection. And most of it from foundations and philanthropies, right? That's 1%, less than 1% of the value created by the ocean. How could you do that? So in the report, I wanted to say, how about we put 10% of the value of the ocean, or 5%? That will double, triple the resources so that we can really take care of our ocean, so that the ocean can take care of us, support all the good work you are doing. And that's really something to think about. And this is just an example in the Mediterranean. Some group estimated that the gap between what is needed to really manage the Mediterranean sustainably for the future, almost $800 million a year, right? And they're using the money to mess up the ocean. So that's that. The other thing is subsidies actually take away, I'm being an economist, opportunity cost, right? Because the money could be used to do better things. Instead of investing the money so that it will bring dividends, we're using it to destroy nature. And this is another report which I was part of, where we estimated for every dollar you invest, helping you guys to do all the amazing work you are doing, we get $5 back. And that, to me, is good investment, right? 1 to 5. So this is good business. It's just that. I think the problem we have is some of us just look at now and the money they make versus the larger benefit. And that's why we all need to work to stop and reduce in order to get the larger societal benefits that this means. Investing in effectively managed MPAs can increase habitat protection, ecosystem resilience, and all the good things that come from this, right? Remember, homelessness is not a nice thing. When you take a bottom trawler and run through the habitat of fish, you are making them homeless, and they are gone, essentially, because that's where they live. So that's a connection to protection that I have. I have to mention the high seas. HC is the high seas, and other things that I'm passionate about. You know, when I think of the way we are managing our ocean now, it's very fragmented. Local efforts are not talking properly with global, national effort. And national effort, we need to do that better. I almost want us to think like cartographers, like map makers. Because maps are fascinating. Just think about a map. You put the whole world on a page, and you actually see in the world. If you check there, you cannot find this hall on a global map, right? So, but if you scale down to the scale that you can see that, you will see this place in the place it would have appeared if the global map was large scale enough. You get the point? So they're talking to each other. It's not like you look at a global map you don't see here, and suddenly you see it in South Africa or in Malaysia. No, it is here in Mexico, in La Paz. And they talk together. I think that's the kind of way we need to really do. So the high seas, you know, and this paper, I think, summarizes a lot of that. 54% of the fishing areas in the high seas, according to our analysis here, would not be profitable if we take out subsidies and take away slave labor, modern slave labor. People are working under difficult conditions there. If we take them out, half of the high seas will become an MPA right away based on economics. So you give this public fund to allow this. So that is a point here to note. And where is my thing? It gets off when I'm teaching in class. In those days, that there's white chalk. You know what? By the time I finish, I'm all white because I'm so excited. I use this. Oh gosh, it was so nice. Now you can't do that with all the modernization. You lose something. So science is really crucial, and I think you mentioned this. And because of the science we are doing, we have done, me, our colleagues, and people, we have really compelled the world to take this serious in a way. So this paper, we did it just before the last WTO meeting, got it into science, and there were nearly 300 scientists from all continents of the world, except Antarctica, right? And 277 different institutions came together and wrote a letter to WTO members saying, it's time to deal with it. It was so powerful. The Director General, Sister Ngozi, I call her, she asked us to hand over. She did a ceremony. We handed this letter to her, which she distributed all over. Again, talking about diversity, Dr. Ngozi is the first woman to ever be the Director General of the WTO. And I've gone through at least 3 or 4 of them, and she's the one who managed to guide them to an agreement, right? That is a good thing, diversity. Let's get more diverse people in there. And that is what science can do also too. Actually, this is on the WTO. That's the news item they did after the handover. So let's keep pushing. Let's be hopeful. And I know time is out. I don't know. I've summarized very quickly to give you. Is that okay? A summary of the WTO agreement so that at least you. It's 9 pages, by the way. Can you imagine 164 countries? They managed to sign a document which is just 9 pages. It's a lot of legalistic stuff, but that's really amazing, right? So what I've done is just to take out a few of the things in there for those of you who don't look at this all the time. So number one, the agreement does not cover subsidies to aquaculture. It does not cover subsidies to inland freshwater fisheries. And it does not cover any activities related to fish offshore, all right? So that's a basic thing to understand. So this is all about fishing on the water in the marine ecosystem. All right. So that's, and then there are actually 3 very important articles in there. The first one is that they agreed that no subsidies should go to any fishing vessel that is known to engage in IUU fishing. All right. I don't think anyone can argue against that, right? So they got that through. The second article, Article 4, they say no subsidies to any fish stocks that are known to be already overfished. Okay? So that is another thing, and I have issues with some of this, but let's just get the message in. The Article 5 is about the high seas. They say that you cannot subsidize any boat that is operating in areas of the high sea that are not currently managed by regional fisheries management organizations, okay? And that these are the 3 things they agreed. And you can go into each of these and analyze them, and we are doing that now. In fact, we submitted a paper on Article 5 last Friday. I think we submitted a paper where we looked at it. I coordinated with a political science person, a lawyer, and myself, and we submitted a paper looking at that. I wouldn't spill the beans, but what I can say is there's a very small part of the high seas that is not currently managed by RFMOs, which means that if we go by area, the effect is not going to be much given the area that is free. But there are other interpretations that can help us there. All right. Then here, horizontal, they had all sorts of things, special and differential treatment for developing countries. They talk about technical assistance to developing countries. As you can see, implementing this can be very challenging. First, you have to know whether a stock is overfished or not. And in many of our countries, we don't even know that, right? So technical transparency, I think they agreed to report to the WTO, so we have an idea, and other issues that I can't go into, but just to give you a little idea of what is in there. Now, what is left out of the agreement? And this is the controversial thing. You know, they don't have in the agreement that you shouldn't provide subsidies that can lead to overfishing and overcapacity. And this was in the chair's first draft. By the way, the chair is a Colombian, did a wonderful job together with the Director General to get us where we got to. So I applaud them anytime I have a chance. They've done what they could do. I think the reason they didn't get this through was that they were not going to get an agreement if they insisted on it. You remember they work on consensus. Every member has to agree. And they know that this is important, so they have it on the agenda for this year's negotiation. So what this means to all of us here, don't go to sleep and say we have an agreement. No, it's just the beginning. Number one, 2/3 of the 164 countries have to ratify this agreement before it comes into force. So there's a lot of work to do. And this is only part of the story. There's more to be done. So let's keep working. That's my call for you. If you want to take something, that's one of the things we can work on. Now, I'm getting to the end here. I think I have 1 or 2 slides more. So, or 3, not 4 for sure, okay? So here, this is one of my pleas, and talking about a cartographer and the geographer, we have to think of the ocean as one ocean, and many have talked about this. We have one global ocean, and ultimately we have one humanity. And like I said before, I think eventually enough people in the world will know this, and we will try to make sure that everybody is doing reasonably well. And so, and why? Because fish doesn't respect borders. No. I was in London, I gave a talk, and this was when Brexit was very highly debated. And I told them, you know what? You can Brexit as much as you want. The fish doesn't care. French fish, British fish, they go where they go, right? And when I'm in the US, I do the same. Mexican fish, no, they go. Walls cannot stop them, right? So you have to connect this to real life also. And how about plastic? Starts from one place, it goes to the other. So we need to think and act both locally and globally, because we don't have global governments. Maybe we don't need any global government. When I think of it, imagine a nasty person taking over the world government. We will all be in trouble. So it's better we have split power around the world, right? You can just imagine that. So, but we need to find a way to make this work in our current system, at least. Now, I get to infinity fish. Yeah, that's the second last one. Have you heard about infinity fish? I want to give you some hope. This is the title of my book, which I published last year, October, and it's real. It's not a joke. I have a copy here, okay? It's real. There's one thing I don't like about it, and I have to tell you, it's the price. This is the academic price, actually, and they didn't ask me. I would give it away if I could, because the main thing is to get people to read this. Infinity fish is it's about valuation. It's about thinking broadly about our relationship with the ocean. And many of you talked about this. I mean, it's amazing. This meeting, hey, Mario, congratulations, you and your group. This is really a good meeting. I mean, because you brought activists, you have scientists, you have everybody's in here, and together is the only way we can move forward. So infinity fish is an idea I actually started way back in Namibia. I was asked to give a talk. National fisheries there. Now, in Namibia, if you know, there are two things that are important, natural resources. It's fish and it's diamond. And they are always fighting because the diamond operation happens onshore, just off the coast. So they are always, we are more important. So I go there. There were 3 African ministers there, and I'm here to tell you that fish is more valuable than diamond. And oh my gosh, the room is, what the hell is he talking, right? So this is my explanation. Fish is renewable, right? Diamond is not. That we can agree. No argument about that. That means you can, if you manage your fisheries well, you can go in, year out, and get benefits, feed your family, do your small economics, right? Forever, infinity. And mathematically, anything that gives you benefit, even if it is small, year in, year out, to infinity, if you sum it mathematically, the benefit is infinity. That is infinity fish, infinity ocean, infinity biodiversity, right? But diamond, if you dig a ton of diamond today, go tomorrow, you won't find that ton of diamond. Forget about what they tell you, diamond is forever. It's not forever, it's gone forever, right? And then the ministers are looking at it, and I say, I know you are thinking, oh, but we'll take our diamond money and invest it, and that can bring us benefit, right? And I say, but I know all of you are running deficits. Your government never save money. You blow all the money, but at least the fish is there each year to support your people. So that's one reason. The second reason is that fish is valuable for many, whilst diamond, as I see it, is valuable to a few people. You know, in Namibia, DBS, that's almost all the diamond mining. They hire a few hundred Namibians, and that's it. So I ask you a question here. How many of you have seen diamond in your life? I'm talking about the raw cut diamond. How many of you have seen it? Okay, we have Donna here. That's wonderful. You are the only one. When, Donna? There you go. So you know diamond, blood diamond and all that, right? So you see, how many of you have eaten fish this week? Come on. It's everybody virtually. So anywhere I do, that's what you see. So fish is valuable to many of us. And that kind of set up the stage for my book. And I brought in all the topics we talk here in there. and have fun reading it. Even if it is just chapter 1, I think you will enjoy it, okay? Yeah. And here, when I say infinity fish, the bottom line is the key way I see it. We have a responsibility, those of us here now, to pass a healthy ocean teeming with life to the next generation so they too can have the option to do the same. And that, to me, is what should be our goal, everybody alive, you know. And if we do that and carry on, then we can get infinity fish, infinity ocean, infinity biodiversity. Finally, I want to leave you with something my grandpa told me when I was a little kid, and I didn't even understand until now. You know, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Mexico, football, soccer, right? So we have our soccer, little kids were playing and banging the ball and hitting and jumping up and down. And my grandfather will say, hey, you guys, why are you just because you can jump and hit on the ground or earth, you just do it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. You should think as if the earth feels pain when you do that. So play your soccer, but in a way you feel like the earth feels pain. And if you can do that, you can enjoy your soccer without really causing pain to the earth, right? So whatever we do to the animals, the whales, the fish, we should behave as if they feel pain, and that will be a good guide for us to ensure that this goes on forever. And I am there. Thank you so much for all your attention. Mario, Nura, and all of you. This is wonderful, and I enjoy this a lot. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
¿Cómo ven hacerle 2 preguntas a Rashid? Ahí está una, pero preguntas puntuales, nada de ponencias en las preguntas, directo a pregunta. Entonces la primera se la damos a José.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually just going to make a very brief comment. I had the privilege of listening twice this year to Dr. Rashid Sumaila in person. And one of those was at the UN Ocean Conference. And I was the only Brazilian NGO allowed to speak at the plenary of that conference. And I used the phrase that I heard him saying when he was talking at the whale and dolphin side event, whale and dolphin conservation. And he said, you know, it's okay, everyone talks about food security, but who cares about the food security for whales and food security for sharks and seabirds and fish? I guess that relates directly to what you say about infinity fish. We should think about the health of the whole ocean ecosystem, and I'm extremely grateful for you to having allowed me to use that at the plenary of the UN session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. This is really good. I said that in a meeting of biologists and economists, and they are all excited about food security. And I said, you know, I love this concept a lot. And why? I said, you know, most people, when we talk about food security, we're thinking about people. How about the food security of the animals in the ocean and on land? Not only, oh gosh, and the room just went. Yeah, we should think more broadly. That's the point. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
La segunda pregunta al grano, por favor. Bueno, creo que Cristina va a hacer un comentario ahí.
No, voy a hacer una pregunta.
Pregunta, perdón.
Era pregunta, no comentario.
Sí, pregunta.
Rashid, amazing presentation. Thank you for the work you do. My question is this. Has any country eliminated fully subsidies, and have they seen a benefit from that? Second part of the question is, you know, if you had a magic wand, I mean, how do we get rid of subsidies in other countries?
Two great questions. You know, I go straight to Norway. I go to Norway because Norway used to subsidize a lot for all sorts of reasons, but they have actually stopped. I heard it was in the news 2 months ago. They are actually beginning to tax their fisheries sector. So they've gone away from subsidies, and which is what you should do if you are doing economics, right? Because there's a negative externality. The fish is for all of us. You get benefit from it. So you contribute to the kitty rather than take it out. So Norway is an example. And I know New Zealand also has very minimal, if any. So And in terms of what to do, I'm just playing with a wild idea here. Maybe if we can get a group of people to work together and choose a fishery or a couple of them, and then take them and look at them, the subsidies go in there and how to use it, work with the community because the community has to be on. We might be able to show how this can really be wonderful. We have a paper being reviewed now where we have calculated how much subsidies goes to different small fishing countries and how much subsidy and what is their income. And actually, in many places, the subsidy alone can pay their current income from the fishery. So you see that we just need to demonstrate this by real action on the ground. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah. Yes.
Quick, Mario.
Just curious, once the WTO new agreement comes into force, and you said something that there's lots of work to be done. But if you were about to recommend the high advisors or the high authorities on WTO, what would you suggest to do the very first thing? I mean, what would you recommend?
You see, what I would recommend is simply not to give public funds to, like fuel. I think I'll go direct to fuel if I was the one, because fuel subsidies to me is the most harmful one. And we've seen it. We have examples. When the oil prices were going, you remember some of you in Europe, in Brussels, there was a big demonstration, right? And I hear one of the presidents of the association saying, we need these subsidies because it's hard to find fish. We need to go far. We need to go deep. So we need subsidy. And I say, so tomorrow you will need to go further and deeper, right? It's just going into the rat hole, right? Instead of pulling back, right? So take out fuel subsidies. And they didn't put it there because they couldn't agree. So if we can push for that, that would be. And by the way, let's see, China gives about 50% of the global fuel subsidies. Yeah, so that's a power base. We got to push China and similar countries to get that kind of movement. Yeah, so take out fuel subsidies. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Bueno, pues Max.
Thank you so. Yeah, and I would ask everyone to follow. He is the nicest person to have a conversation, so please, si ustedes quieren conversar con él, por favor, siéntense con él, la persona más agradable con la cual se puede conversar. Así que muchísimas gracias, Rashid. Thank you so much. Él es como una librería andante, tiene una cantidad de información impresionante, números. Y yo creo que son temas muy claves porque lo que estamos haciendo tiene directa relación con cómo estamos gastando de mal el dinero. Y muchas de las campañas que tenemos alrededor del mundo a lo mejor serían mucho más fácil si le cortamos la llave a ese dinero que está yendo al lugar equivocado y que está saliendo de nuestros bolsillos. Así que muchas gracias por eso, Rashid, nuevamente. Y a todos por estar escuchando tan atentamente. Les dejo, no sé si lo conocen, se llama Mario Gómez.